You, this stupid man! I will deal with you today!
They say what goes around comes around. But sometimes, karma doesn't just come around. It moves in, takes over your house, and teaches you lessons you'll never forget. This is the story of Emeka, a man who thought he could treat his wife like dirt and face no consequences. And Patience, the woman who endured years of abuse with grace, only to watch justice serve itself in the most unexpected way. It's also the story of Blessing, the plus-size mistress who became Emeka's worst nightmare. Some call it karma. Others call it divine justice. But Emeka learned to call it exactly what it was, a match made in heaven. Patience was everything her name suggested. She woke at 5 a.m. every morning to prepare her husband's breakfast. She kept their small house spotless despite having no help. She worked as a seamstress, sewing clothes for neighbors to supplement Emeka's income. She attended church every Sunday and prayed for her marriage every night. And she endured the beatings that came whenever Emeka drank too much. Endured the public humiliation when he flirted with other women right in front of her. Endured the insults he threw at her like stones. Useless woman, waste of space. Lucky I even married you. They'd been married 7 years. No children. Emeka blamed her for that too, though he'd never gone to a doctor to check if the problem might be his. What kind of woman can't give her husband children? He'd shout during arguments. My mother was right about you. Barren and worthless. Patience would lower her eyes and say nothing. Fighting back only made it worse. The village knew what Emeka was. Everyone had seen him slap Patience in the market when she asked why he'd spent their food money on beer. Everyone had heard him curse at her during church services. Everyone had watched him parade other women through town while his wife walked 3 steps behind, head down, trying to be invisible. Why do you stay? Her sister asked once. Marriage is sacred, Patience replied quietly. The Bible says. The Bible also says a man should love his wife like Christ loved the church. Is this love? But Patience stayed. Because she'd made vows. Because she believed in redemption. Because she hoped that one day, Emeka would change. She was wrong about the change. But she was right about redemption. It just came in a form no one expected. Her name was Blessing, and she was everything Patience wasn't. Loud where Patience was quiet. Bold where Patience was meek. And big. Not just tall, but powerfully built. With arms that looked like they could snap a man in half and a voice that could silence a room. Emeka met her at a bar 6 months before everything changed. She laughed at his jokes, bought her own drinks, and didn't flinch when he got handsy. He thought he'd found his perfect woman. This is a real woman, he told his friends, gesturing at Blessing's curves. Not like that stick figure I have at home. This is what a man needs. Blessing smiled, her eyes calculating. So why are you still married to the stick figure? Good question, Emeka said, already drunk on cheap beer and cheaper attention. Maybe I should do something about that. The affair became public within weeks. Emeka didn't bother hiding it. Why would he? His wife wouldn't dare say anything. His friends thought he was a big man for having a woman on the side. And Blessing didn't care who knew. She showed up at Emeka's workplace, at his church, at his house, bold as brass, while Patience was inside cooking dinner. Your wife knows I'm here. Blessing would ask, loud enough for neighbors to hear. She knows her place, Emeka would reply, puffing out his chest. Patience knew. Of course she knew. The whole village knew. But what could she do? Leave? With no money and no family support? Report him? The elders would just tell her to pray harder and submit better. So she stayed, and prayed, and hoped God was watching. He was. And he was about to answer in the most dramatic way possible. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Emeka came home drunk at 3 a.m., smelling of cheap perfume and cheaper decisions. He woke Patience by throwing her suitcase on the bed. Pack your things. Patience sat up, confused and half asleep. What? I said pack. You're leaving. I'm bringing Blessing here. This is her house now. The words took a moment to register. When they did, Patience felt something crack in her chest. Emeka, please. This is our home. We're married. We're married, he corrected. I'm done with you. You can't give me children. You can't satisfy me as a woman. You can barely cook a decent meal. Blessing is everything you're not. She's moving in tomorrow, so you need to be gone by then. Where will I go? That's not my problem. He turned to leave, then added, and don't take anything that belongs to me. Just your clothes. Everything else stays. He slammed the door. Patience sat in the darkness, shaking. 7 years of marriage. 7 years of service and submission and hoping things would get better. And this was how it ended. Thrown out like garbage to make room for his mistress. She could have screamed, could have fought, could have burned the house down. Instead, she knelt beside her bed and prayed. Not for Emeka to change his mind. Not for revenge. Just for strength to survive what was coming. By morning, she was packed. By noon, She was standing at her sister's door with one small bag and a broken heart. He threw you out? Her sister gasped. He's bringing his mistress to live in our house. That man is going to regret this, her sister said, pulling her inside. I promise you, patience. God is not asleep. That man is going to regret this. She had no idea how right she was. Blessing arrived the next day in a hired van, carrying twice the belongings Patience had accumulated in 7 years. The neighbors came out to watch. This was better than television. Emeka stood in the doorway like a proud peacock as Blessing directed workers to bring in her things. She wore a tight red dress that left nothing to imagination and heels so high they could be classified as weapons. This is my house now, she announced to anyone within earshot. And things are going to be different around here. The neighbors exchanged glances. Different how? They found out quickly. That first night, Emeka came home expecting the same treatment he'd received from Patience. Hot food on the table, cold beer in the fridge, a clean house, and a submissive woman ready to cater to his every whim. Instead, he found Blessing sprawled on the couch, watching TV, surrounded by empty snack wrappers. Where's dinner? He asked. In the kitchen, she replied without looking up. Why isn't it on the table? Because I didn't make it. You have hands. Cook for yourself. Emeka laughed nervously. That's a good joke. Now seriously, where's dinner? Blessing turned to look at him, her expression flat. Do I look like I'm joking? I'm not your mother, and I'm definitely not your ex-wife. You want to eat, you cook. You want the house clean, you clean it. You want your clothes washed, there's a bucket in the bathroom. But you're a woman. This is woman's work. And you're a man. Go be a man and feed yourself. Emeka stood there, stunned. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. This wasn't what he'd signed up for. But he'd just thrown out his wife. He couldn't admit he'd made a mistake. Not yet. Not when the whole village was watching. So he cooked his own dinner that night. And the next night. And the night after that. Within a month, the village noticed the change. Emeka, who used to swagger through town like he owned it, now walked quickly with his head down. The man who used to beat his wife for minor infractions now sported a black eye that he claimed came from walking into a door. No one believed him, because they'd all seen Blessing slap him in the market when he questioned why she'd spent his entire paycheck on new clothes. They'd all heard her shouting at him from their house, her voice carrying across compounds. You think you can talk to me like I'm that pushover you married? Try it again and see if you don't end up in the hospital. They'd all watched Emeka cook, clean, and fetch water while Blessing sat in the shade, directing him like he was the help. Karma is real, the neighbors whispered. That's what he gets for how he treated Patience. God doesn't sleep. Emeka heard the whispers. But what could he do? Blessing was twice his size and 3 times as fierce. The one time he tried to raise his hand to her, the way he used to with Patience, she'd grabbed his wrist, twisted his arm behind his back, and whispered in his ear. I'm not her. You hit me, I hit back. Harder. You understand. He understood. But understanding didn't stop the humiliation from eating away at him. Didn't stop him from lying awake at night, wondering how his life had spiraled so completely out of control. The worst came 3 months after Blessing moved in. Emeka's friends had organized a small party at a local bar. He'd been looking forward to it. A chance to get away from Blessing, to be with the boys, to feel like a man again. Blessing had other plans. She showed up at the bar in a dress so tight it was practically painted on, her hair freshly done, makeup perfect. Every head turned when she walked in. There's my baby, she announced loudly, walking straight to Emeka's table. Emeka's face went pale. Blessing, what are you doing here? I came to be with my man. What's wrong with that? She sat down, squeezed herself next to him despite the tight space. His friends exchanged uncomfortable glances. Actually, Emeka said carefully, this is boys' night. Maybe you could. Boys' night. Blessing's voice rose. You mean drinking night? Wasting money we don't have night. She turned to his friends. Do your women let you waste money like this? One of them made the mistake of laughing. Blessing's head whipped toward him. Something funny? No, Ma. Nothing. Good. She turned back to Emeka. Give me your wallet. What? No, give me your wallet. The entire bar had gone quiet, watching the show. Emeka, his face burning with shame, handed over his wallet. Blessing opened it, took all the cash, and threw the empty wallet back at him. That's for the new shoes I want. And since you're clearly too stupid to manage money, I'll be holding on to your paycheck from now on. You can have an allowance. Like a child. Since you act like one. She stood up, looked around at the stunned faces, and smiled. Enjoy your boys' night. Oh wait, you can't. You have no money. She laughed all the way to the door. After she left, the silence was deafening. Then one of Emeka's friends said quietly, Man, what happened to you? You used to be in charge. Emeka stared at the empty wallet in his hands and had no answer. If the humiliation and the violence were hard to bear, The infidelity was unbearable. Because Blessing didn't just cheat, she made sure everyone knew. She paraded men through town the same way Emeka had once paraded her. Younger men, better-looking men, men who had money and status and didn't need to put women down to feel big. The first time Emeka confronted her, she'd laughed in his face. What's wrong? Can't handle it when someone treats you the way you treated your ex-wife. That was different. How? Because you're a man? Please. She waved a dismissive hand. You set the rules for this relationship, Emeka. You showed me exactly what kind of marriage you wanted. I'm just following your example. I never cheated. You paraded me around while you were still married. You brought me to your church, to your workplace, to your house while your wife was inside. And now you want to cry because I'm doing the same thing? Be grateful I'm at least doing it while you're at work. I could have your boyfriends visit while you're home, if you prefer. Emeka had no response. Because she was right. He had set this precedent. He had shown her this was acceptable. He couldn't complain now that the shoe was on his foot, and it was crushing him. 6 months into this nightmare, Emeka stood in what used to be his house and took stock of his life. He was broke. Blessing controlled all the money. He was exhausted. She made him do all the housework. He was isolated. His friends avoided him out of pity or embarrassment. He was humiliated. The whole village witnessed his downfall daily. He was alone. Blessing barely spoke to him except to give orders or criticism. And he was miserable. More miserable than he'd ever been in his life. He thought about Patience. Sweet, patient, kind Patience who had never raised her voice, never raised her hand, never deliberately humiliated him. Patience who had cooked his meals and washed his clothes and kept their house spotless and asked for nothing in return except basic respect. Patience who he'd thrown away like trash. For this. For Blessing. For a woman who gave him nothing but pain and humiliation and a daily reminder of every terrible thing he'd ever done. God, he whispered into the empty room. What have I done? It took Emeka 2 weeks to work up the courage to find out where Patience was living. His pride fought against it every step of the way. But his misery was stronger than his pride. He found out she was staying with her sister, working as a seamstress, going to church, living quietly. He showed up at her sister's house on a Sunday afternoon, hat in hand, shame in his eyes. Patience's sister answered the door, and her expression said everything words couldn't. You have some nerve showing up here. I know. I need to see her. To talk to her. Please. Why? So you can hurt her more? Humiliate her again? Haven't you done enough? Please. Emeka's voice cracked. I just need 5 minutes. Patience appeared behind her sister, looking smaller than he remembered. Thinner. But there was something in her eyes that hadn't been there before, strength. It's okay, she told her sister. I'll talk to him. They sat in the small yard, an uncomfortable distance between them. How are you? Emeka asked. I'm well. I heard you're doing sewing work. Yes. I'm making enough to support myself. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Emeka said what he came to say. I made a mistake. Patience said nothing. Blessing, she's not what I thought. She's terrible. She beats me. She humiliates me. She cheats on me. She takes all my money. I can't do this anymore. Still, Patience said nothing. I was wrong. Emeka continued, his voice breaking. About everything. About you. About what I wanted. About what makes a good wife. You were perfect, and I was too stupid and arrogant to see it. Please, Patience. Please come home. I'll change. I promise I'll change. I'll be the husband you deserve. Just please come back. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Patience spoke. Do you know why I stayed with you all those years, despite the beating and the cheating and the humiliation? Emeka shook his head. Because I believed marriage was sacred. Because I believed in you. Because I thought love and patience could change anything. She paused. I was wrong. You didn't change because I was patient. You just got worse because there were no consequences. But now you want me back because Blessing is treating you exactly how you treated me. Not because you realized it was wrong. Not because you suddenly grew a conscience. But because you don't like being on the receiving end. The truth of her words hit him like a slap. You're right, he admitted. You're absolutely right. But I see it now. I understand now. What I did to you, it was evil. Unforgivable. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Patience looked at this man she'd spent 7 years with. This man who had broken her spirit, crushed her dignity, and thrown her away when he got bored. She felt nothing. Not anger. Not love. Not even pity. Just a calm, clear certainty. I forgive you, she said quietly. I forgive you because that's what God calls me to do. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It doesn't mean going back to being your doormat. It doesn't mean giving you another chance to destroy me. Please. You wanted Blessing. You have her. That's your match, Emeka. That's the relationship you built. The one where power matters more than love. Where humiliation is normal. Where there's no respect or kindness or partnership. You created that. Now you get to live in it. But I can't. I can't do this anymore. Then leave her. Be alone. Figure out who you are without someone to abuse or someone abusing you. But don't come to me expecting to fix what you broke. I'm not your solution. I'm not your rescue. I'm just the woman who finally learned that sometimes walking away is the only form of self-love that matters. She stood up. I hope you find peace, Emeka. I really do. But you won't find it with me. That chapter is closed. She walked back into her sister's house, leaving Emeka sitting alone in the yard, finally understanding what he'd lost. 6 months later, Emeka finally left Blessing. It cost him everything. She kept the house, the furniture, most of his possessions. He moved into a single room, started over with nothing. But at least he was free. The village talked about it for months. About how karma had given Emeka exactly what he deserved. About how Blessing had been God's instrument of justice. About how Patience had shown more strength in walking away than she ever had in staying. A match made in heaven, the old women would say, laughing. Emeka and Blessing were meant for each other. Both terrible people who finally got what they'd been dishing out. Patience heard the stories, but didn't engage. She was busy building a new life. One where her worth wasn't determined by a man's opinion. Where her days were peaceful. Where she was valued. She never remarried. But she was happy. Genuinely. Deeply happy in a way she'd never been when she was married. And Emeka? He learned his lesson the hard way. Learned that how you treat people matters. That consequences are real. That karma doesn't forget. Some called it poetic justice. Others called it divine intervention. But everyone agreed on one thing. Emeka and Blessing had been a match made in heaven. The kind of heaven that felt an awful lot like hell. And Patience? She'd found her own kind of heaven. The peace that comes from knowing your worth and refusing to settle for less.